7:36 na po na umaga at nitong linggo ay pinagdiwang ang ika-150 anibersaryo ng kapanganakan ni Dr. Jose Rizal. Ngunit hindi dito nagtatapos ang pagdiriwang ng kanyang kaarawan. Sulyapan natin ang iba't ibang paintings na nasa larawan naisalarawan kung ano si Rizal sa iba't ibang pananaw ng mga artists at pintor. Ngayon na ba yung BTR o mamaya na yan? Ngayon na, okay, panoorin po natin. At ngayon na may pag-uusapan natin itong libro na ilulunsad mamaya patungkol sa pagkakaibigan ni Ferdinand Blumentritt at ang ating pambansang bayaning si Jose Rizal. Kasama natin ngayong umaga si Dr. Christian Traveger, Honorary Consul of the Philippines in Austria. We have also Peter Sikrovsky, former member of the European Parliament, and Alfred Reiterer, CEO of Austria Media Corporation, publisher of the book. Good morning to all of you.
Good morning, magandang umaga.
Okay, tell us about the book.
This book was written by my father, so I'm here only as his son. And my father was a journalist for many years, and in 1980 he was here with the Austrian Chancellor, Bruno Kreisky. And when they traveled through the city, they recognized a very German name, Blumentritt, that was totally unknown in Austria. And researching, who was behind this name, my father got very interested in the history, and this is how he started to work on the book and then publish the book also.
Why did he get interested in the history of Blumentritt and Rizal?
This goes into it's almost like European history. My father was born in Vienna in 1938. He had to leave Austria and he went to England and he joined the British Army and he was sent to India. So as a very young man, he spent the years from 1940 to 45 as a British soldier in India, Malaysia, Singapore, and then after the war, when he worked as a journalist, this was his main subject, Asia, and this is where he concentrated on.
Okay, Blumentritt I thought he was German, but he's actually...
you're also touching a very European history.
Yes.
Yeah, he was born in Prague, he spoke German. At that time it was Austria.
Yes. But now it's the Czech Republic.
Now it's the Czech Republic.
So it's kind of confusing.
It's if you look at the most famous writer in German is Franz Kafka. He was born in Prague. He wrote in German, and he was Austrian. At that time, all these cultural differences were still part of the Great Austria.
Okay, describe to us how would you describe the friendship of Blumentritt and Rizal? Blumentritt was how old when they became friends with Rizal? When he became friends with Rizal?
Blumentritt was about 40 years old when they met first, and Professor Blumentritt was actually born, as already mentioned, in Prague, which at that time was the Greater Empire, the Austrian Empire, and they were friends from the beginning, I would say. And Professor Blumentritt had 3 children. The first one and the youngest was Konrad, then he had a daughter Dolores and another son Friedrich. And the routes going to Austria were via the son Konrad, because in 1945 Konrad transferred and was moved from the, at that time, Czech Republic to Austria and to Tyrol. So they loved this country and they loved the mountains of Tyrol, so they started their life in Tyrol. And in Tyrol, the grandson was born, which name was Kurt Blumentritt, and he had a business on stone carving in Tyrol. And the son of Kurt was Erwin Blumentritt, and Erwin Blumentritt still lives in Tyrol, in Tyrol near Innsbruck. He is also operating that stone carving business, and his hobby is painting. And he painted a scene of the book Noli Me Tangere. And in this scene, and you might see it on the picture, on the painting, maybe you can show, it's the scene where Rizal describes a visit to Austria, where it's not in the history that Rizal really visited Tyrol, but he describes a sea, a lake in the mountains of Tyrol, where 3 monks once a year hired a boat from a fisherman and crossed a little lake to see and to explore the Garden of Eden. And it's really very beautiful to see it on that painting, and maybe we can show it. I brought it in the studio. It's the very first official appearance of this picture, of this painting. and it was painted by Erwin Blumentritt, who is the grandson of Professor Ferdinand Blumentritt.
And what brought them together? Why did they become such good friends? How did they get together?
I would say Professor Blumentritt, first, when Rizal was in Europe, he experienced that there is a teacher, a professor, his name was Blumentritt. So he wrote him some letters, and in these letters he asked him for his ideas, and so Professor Blumentritt started to support the vision of Dr. Rizal, and that's how they became friends. And it really shows the last letter Professor Rizal wrote was to he called him my dear brother, to his best friend, Professor Blumentritt.
Wow, okay. When are we going to launch this? It's supposed to, I think it's tonight?
Yes, this book will be launched tonight at 6:30 at the Yushchenko Museum.
Yeah.
There will be
Yushchenko Museum.
Yushchenko Museum in ACBC Plaza. There will be also an exhibition. And in the future, the book can be bought in Yushchenko Museum at Rizal Shrine and online on the internet at www.Blumentritt-Rizal-Book.com.
And you're going to be donating some books to schools?
Yes, Jose Rizal was the great teacher of the Philippines. Ferdinand Blumentritt was the teacher. So we said we want to donate 150 books to schools here in the Philippines, and we have invited the congressmen and senates to nominate schools who don't have the funds to buy these books. So we will donate it by the end of the month.
Wow, that's good. And there's a Noli Me Tangere garden in Rizal Park.
Yes, one of the projects of Secretary Lim and the National Park Development Authority was to revive the Rizal Park. And there is a Blumentritt bust and the Heidelberg Fountain. And they make it now very nice with the Noli Me Tangere garden. If you enter the Rizal Park on the right side, you will find it. Sit down, enjoy the Heidelberg Fountain, and think about the Philippines.
And then you have other projects regarding the Philippine-Austrian relations? And
I think the best is if Christian Trevego or Peter Sichrowski will answer on it.
Yeah.
We have quite very good relations between the Philippines and Austria in the past and also in the future. I think it's more on the economic development between these two countries, as well as on the culture, of course, based on the 150 years of Rizal and Blumentritt. And in one of the speeches, your former secretary Romulo mentioned that every child in the Philippines knows Blumentritt, and I have to say that in Austria it's not really that every child and every scholar would know Professor Blumentritt, so we have to work on that a little more.
Because there's a street in Manila that's
exactly, you have the station of Blumentritt,
yes.
And he should be much more acknowledged also in Austria. I think that would be one of the future projects to bring more knowledge about Blumentritt to the people. But maybe Peter can add something on that.
Well, it shows how history is passed on in the family. I'm not, of course, I am the son of my father here, but I'm also running a company here in the Philippines. In Calamba, we have 2 power stations, and I'm here very often, about 4 or 5 times a year. And our company, Novo Capital, is concentrating on the energy business. So you see there is an economic relationship also going back in our own family now.
Yes. Do you intend to expand anytime soon?
We plan to. If it's running very well, and we try to expand and try to find more investors also in Austria. I think the economic relationship have a great future.
Are there a lot of Austrians coming to the Philippines
for
sightseeing?
Most of them come for tourism, but I think especially since the development is very promising here, and there's a lot of companies, maybe you know more about this.
We have many Austrian companies, they have offices here, like Wagner Biro is one of the major companies. They are building bridges all over the Philippines, and then there are different other companies that are based here. But just to say that, which I have to say because I'm representing the Philippines in Austria, we have quite a big community in Austria. We have 35,000 Filipinos living in Austria. They came with the first batch of nurses to Austria. So there is a a good community of Filipinos in Austria. And you asked about the Austrians coming to the Philippines. It's about 15,000 Austrians coming to the Philippines every month.
Mm-hmm. And aside from the nurses, do we have professionals there too, like lawyers or architects or?
Unfortunately, you know, the Schengen visum is quite very strict on that. So the government is right now working on solutions to, of course, allow more people from the Philippines to start business as lawyers or other jobs in Austria. But the first jobs were on nurses or caretakers, caregivers.
Austria is not a big country.
We are actually a very small country.
Very
we have
small.
9 million inhabitants, so we are smaller
9
than
million.
Metro Manila.
Yes, you're 10% of our population.
But we are very proud about our history. Yes. We are in the middle of Europe, so we play, even if we are small, but we play a major role in the middle of Europe, I would say.
And if you look at our history, you know, it used to be one of the biggest countries in the world. And unfortunately, 1918, unfortunately, other countries would say they are glad they are independent now. But if I think for Mr. Blumentritt, if we go back to him, he lived in a very big country that covered half of Europe.
That's right. And he was going around, like Rizal, he moved around Europe.
No, actually, that's the difference. Ferdinand Blumentritt was someone who stayed in his office.
Oh, he just stayed there. He didn't go around.
He was a teacher. He lived in Leitmeritz. He exchanged a lot of letters with Rizal, but it was always the opposite. Rizal was the active one, the one who was traveling, telling him everything, and he was the one who is sitting, doing his research in the books and motivating him. Because Rizal wanted to stop the Noli Me Tangere. And he said, no, you have to finish the novel, you have to publish it. And he was the one who translated it into German, and it was first published in Berlin.
Do you still have the letters of Rizal to Blumentritt? Are they displayed somewhere in Austria?
No, they are displayed in the Czech Republic at the moment.
In the Czech Republic,
Yeah.
Okay, so they're still there.
The
original letters.
Maybe because you asked, you know, why Mr. Blumentritt got so interested.
Yes.
There is an interesting story that there is no proof, but Blumentritt himself thought that going back into his family history, there's a connection to the Philippines. So he always tried to find, you know, relatives. He found relatives who lived in Spain, and then he found relatives who moved to the Philippines. So he was always very
so he
living
had
in
relatives
books.
here in the Philippines?
Well, there is no actual proof, but I think that he thought that there is a direct connection between the Philippines and his family. This was one of the motivations why he got really interested in the country.
But he never found any direct.
Nobody really found the proof, but it was enough proof for him
Yeah.
to become really one of the leading specialists, you know. And if you look at his history, he was also a very strong supporter of the independence of the Philippines. He was not just a researcher, he was very active.
Did he ever come to the
scientist.
Philippines?
No, he never left Europe.
He never left Europe.
I think for him, traveling to Spain, even to get documents for his own family, was very exhausting, with a lot of planning. He was not, as Mr. Reiter said, he was not the traveling type. He was more the scientist, more the teacher, more sitting in his room and studying books.
And pushing Rizal to finish his book.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we'll see you at the book launch tonight.
Yes,
We hope so.
This will be available, they can buy it there.
Yes.
And then after tonight, where can they buy this?
You can buy it online on the internet, www.blumentritt-Rizal-book.com.
We hope in all the bookstores.
All the bookstores.
Yeah,
Okay, so thank you very much. Magandang umaga.
Thank you for inviting me.
Magbabalik po ang The Morning Show kay Alice.